some insights into me and what I've been doing, and maybe some of the things that you might find interesting to bring into your organization. Up until about a month ago, I was the director of global sales for a VMS company, and we were doing very well. We were exceeding our quotas, and but due to a cost cutting requirement, my position was eliminated. And so now I'm trying to find a better way to demonstrate my experience and to demonstrate what I bring to the table through this video and through this website, frankly. Um, you'll find I'm not going to be using any script for this conversation. I want you to be able to see a little bit of my personality, maybe have an interest in connecting with me to talk in further detail. So if any of these points seem a bit vague, um, please reach out and I'd be happy to give you more detail. So, with that, let's start by giving you a little bit of background as to who I am. Again, mentioned that I was the director of global sales. I've been involved in the VMS and MSP space since the late 90s. We were one of the initial companies and to enter the space. And back then we were called Itility, and our big competition is now known as Fieldglass. Um, so I've been in this space for quite some time. I do have a very strong relationship with our channel partners at Vector. 90% of our business was done through MSP partners. We did have a direct sales initiative, but it really just accounted for 10% of the business. And it was growing. It's a growing part of the business. And I think there are companies that are certainly interested in self-managing programs. And so having a VMS system that allows you to do that is very important. In 2022, I had 28 partners that were generating revenue for us, and a total of 36 partners under contract. The additional ones were new and had not yet landed their first deal, although my understanding is that half of those now have landed. But that's through the grapevine, so I'm not exactly sure of the specific number. 6 to 8 eight, I believe, were international. So I've been out and helped close deals on the international landscape as well. The thing that I really like doing is working through channels because I can leverage more business that way. And as well, the international piece of it's very, it's very rewarding, and I like that a great deal. I've been a speaker at a variety of industry events like the SIE forums, etc. And I think one of the fun things was I was asked to be a hackathon judge. In some of these regional networking groups, they have hackathons, and I'm the contract labor expert, so I get to see other VMS systems, how they work, what some of the items are. They're future-looking items, and so that's very rewarding as well. For me, it's all about just trying to understand where we go from here. It's not about really. There's a lot of static elements to VMS right now, or elements that have been the same since we started back 20 years ago. So it's really important that we try to get some new life, some new energy into what can be offered by an MSP or what can be offered to a hiring company to manage their own labor. So what you're going to see over the next few minutes is really some of the websites that I have in play. And for a variety of reasons, you'll see the differentiators. These are sites that could be used by you should we go down that path, or you could have, or they'll be used by me if that's the kind of the future. Crystal ball isn't very sure of what the future is going to hold, so we'll just see how that plays out. So Virtual Workforce is a consulting company. Years ago, I put Virtual Workforce together, and the focus was really on three areas. One is consulting for the hiring company. It was typically for a Gen 1 or first generation MSP or a tech company, a hiring organization, right? So companies that were trying to understand how to use a VMS and how to implement it and what are the best practices. So there's a whole practice on that with Virtual Workforce. The second use case is for a 1099 employee. 1099 employees are typically, for the most part, consultants. They have a staffing companies that want to get into the MSP business. So how do you do it? How do you manage a program? Those kind of things. For that group, excuse me, I've got a package of three general pillars that I work through. One is the business plan, the second is the sales plan, and the third is the operational plan. And the intent with those elements is that the staffing company can then go to their board or to their advisory group and lay out the goods and the bads of getting into the MSP business, what their potential revenue would be, what the risks are, and so forth. So those are really the three pillars of what virtual workforce is about. If we go a little bit deeper, there's three items of focus, particularly when you start talking about the hiring organization. So workforce management is really understanding how contract labor plays into your workforce plans. How do we, if there are projects that are coming up, what elements are, or where are the gaps that contract labor might be able to fill? The second pillar is the demand management. So what that means is how difficult is it going to be to get those people into your facility and on assignment? Is there brand recognition? Do you have access to the talent directly? You'll see some tools in a couple of slides that might help with that. But that's where demand management comes in. And then market dynamics is really how competitive are you with rates? What's the competitive or how many jobs are available in the market that you want to have access to? So it's really understanding the market component, which means this is usually these are things that are not fully recognized by hiring companies that are just getting into it. They really think that they'll fill the gap by just getting a hold of a supplier and off they go. But you really need more information today, and that information is available, so you might as well use it. So that's virtual workforce. The next item is Contract Workforce Roundtable. This idea was started about 10 years ago, and it was during the time where in-person networking events occurred. And the focus for contract workforce is in the name. There are a lot of networking groups still in existence that focus on HR issues or issues around full-time hire. There are very few that are around the contract workforce. So, but at the time, we were doing them in person. And the intent was to move them from market to market. And things have changed over the last few years. Now, a lot of these events are done virtually. I was talking to a partner of mine, and I suggested that we should resurrect this, if you will, to do it more of in a press conference kind of format, where instead of having a webinar or a pitch, we're going to have a topic and talk about it for maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and then offer time for the participants to provide feedback or ask questions. And there are live stream platforms that will allow you to do that. And that's what we're going to do. So there are two basic kind of events that will be in this, under this banner. One is that live stream press conference that I mentioned. And two, there's online roundtable software that we'll be using to be doing a traditional roundtable. Which means that if you're interested in being a roundtable leader, we're certainly open to that. Excuse me, if there are topics that you're interested in making sure we cover, please message them out. This is a site that's been up now for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. My expectation, given the holidays and where we are in wrapping up the year, that these events won't start until the beginning of next year. So stay tuned for those events. And if there's any topics, please message me, because I think this is going to become a very kind of important cog. And again, it's meant to be used by companies that are managing their contract labor programs. We do have a couple of organizers. If you want to get involved in that, that'll be great. The participant tab, we're encouraging anybody that participates to allow us to put your name and contact information should other participants want to reach out. And then, of course, sponsorships if you're interested in contributing to the roundtable. So stay tuned for more information on that. Paytrack is another brand that I've been working with. I work with a company that was scraping jobs, labor market data. That data was used to and sold to compensation departments so they could understand what current market rates were. The financial markets were interested in it and use it as a predictor of stock market prices. But I decided that I wanted to create a UI so that we could use this specifically to go into ATS and VMS systems where, as an example, if you're creating a requisition and you want to know what the current market rate is, there will be a button that sits similar to the search current rate button, be in the VMS tool or ATS tool where you can click on it and say, here's the current rate, here's how it compares to the national average, here's how many jobs are open currently in your specific area, and here's how long those jobs are taking to fill. So here's a screenshot of a search. Excuse me. And this is for account manager in Atlanta. Shows the rates. It shows the summary of exactly what I was talking about. So this is going to help you do some budgeting. It's going to help you understand what kind of recruiting effort is going to be needed. It will help you then really put together a plan for how you're going to meet the demands. Now, account manager might not be as important as the project manager or certain skills that you're looking for in development and so forth, or maybe some manufacturing jobs, but all that stuff is available through Paytrack. So the intent there is really to get a better understanding of current market rates and then put that into the VMS and ATS system so that you have access to that. As we all know, hiring companies think they're paying too much and consultants think they're not getting paid enough. Well, this really puts clarity to that. The next brand, which I think this is a new idea of mine that I've just put in play recently. I call it My Tier Zero. And what My Tier Zero is we have traditionally tiered our vendors to to get certain positions in the food chain of labor market, if you will. So the best performing vendors will sit at the first tier. The next group of vendors will be in tier 2, et cetera. And in all of those cases, you can look at the presentation that's separate of this and see more of the concept of what tier 0 does. But it's an MSP offering that allows you to directly connect to the talent and keep the talent warm and available to you. Another word for this is direct sourcing. Direct sourcing is something that you can integrate into most MSPs or into most VMS systems. It hasn't been done very well when it comes to contract labor. It's definitely a strategy that's worked in full-time hires. I know I found a way to make it play in the contract labor space, and that's the genesis of My Tier Zero. So the focus for My Tier Zero is rather than having a staffing company represent you to the talent, you represent yourself. You connect directly to the talent. They identify that they want to work for you. You keep them up to date of upcoming opportunities, and maybe most important is it helps your brand recognition and your ability to fill jobs quicker. There's a number of benefits to this, including reduction in rates and decreased time to fill. But it's a concept that I think is definitely going to play in the MSP space, and it's just a matter of decluttering it. It can be explained to hiring companies in a very confusing way, and I'm not going to try to declutter it on this quick call, but certainly would love to have that conversation with you if you're interested. The last element I put in here really is the next generation of VMS. So as I mentioned, in doing the hackathon judging and listening to some of the presentations of, uh, of new VMS systems, the messaging is very much very similar to the same messaging we've been doing for years. And I really think that that needs to change. And if you're going to survive, particularly if you're interested in some forward thinking um, for the next generation. So my fear is that VMS systems could be replaced by other applications as they kind of morph into the VMS space. And I'm very adamant and very passionate about the VMS space expanding and putting a squeeze on some of these new applications. So where I differentiate myself is rather than saying, "Hey, I've implemented a VMS or I've used a VMS." Or I've sold VMS systems. I've done all of that, and I've done that in a direct way and through the channel network. But what I'm suggesting here is there are concepts that need to be incorporated into the next VMS. Direct sourcing, as I mentioned with my tier 0 is one. In order to do direct sourcing within the platform, it's not a large jump. It does take some work, but it's not a large jump. When it comes to scheduling, credentialing, particularly within the healthcare space. All of these applications can be done with external API connectivity, but there's not a large jump to get this into the VMS itself. Scheduling concepts for healthcare, for higher education, even into the manufacturing environment is something that VMSs should do. Credentialing is the same thing when it comes to even light industrial and forklift certification and logistics and truck driving, essentials, I should say. So those are all things that I think are being done to a degree in VMS systems, but could use a little jump start. The IRP is a very much a hot topic in healthcare, and this is where you coordinate full-time hires into the contract labor pool. It's kind of like doing project management, but on a different scale. It's something we can certainly talk about if you're not familiar with IRP. And then, of course, the market rate piece. That's the pay track component. And I believe that data will be certainly involved or certainly integrated into VMS as this thing moves forward. And I think really all of these need to be integrated, or there are other applications that are out there nipping at our heels to try to get into our space. So there you have it. If you want to talk more, I'd certainly be interested in having that conversation. The number here is my cell phone. There's a Calendly account that I've got where if you want to schedule time, certainly open to that. And then, of course, LinkedIn. And all of these details can be found in my LinkedIn profile. So again, I appreciate the time that you've spent. Looks like we're on about 19 minutes, and I know that you're busy, and I do truly appreciate that you took the time to see this one through. And I look forward to the conversation. Thanks.